Hi everybody, it's TJ, Trend Jumper. I want to talk about the EuroBund today for our European and Australian, all our members from the other side of the world, and also American members who are just night owls and want to trade during the nighttime. This is an excellent market to trade. I want to first show you the difference between the two calculators. Typically with this plan we want to go to the 2x for our full target, and the second target, the 1.5x, is our money management level. So we'll look at this one trade right here. The full single position target is going to be here. Once it gets down to the middle target, we're going to move our stop to lock in one tick. Okay? Now with the Pro calculator, it's going to look a little bit different because the Pro calculator always exits at the second position. But we want the second position to be where the third target is, at 2x. So we set it up a little bit differently. Let me show you. So here's the Pro calculator, and a couple things you're going to notice. First of all, you're going to notice the target is the middle target. I made the third target really small, just putting a little dot. I need to use the third target because I'm using the small trade feature to push the dot levels down. Okay, so what happens is the first target becomes the 1.5x and the second target becomes the 2x, where the third target was on the standard calculator. Now, you may notice that the entry also moved lower. The entry moved lower because I have the key level adjustments feature turned on inside the Pro calculator. The entry is 2 ticks below the setup bar. The low of 68, that would push the entry down to 66. And if you choose to adjust around 5s and 0s, which I typically do, I'm not sure if it's even necessary on this particular plan. I definitely want to go around the 0s. I just do it out of habit. You may decide to not do this, and if you wanted to come into the Pro calculator, you could change it, have the minor level be a 10 instead of a 5, and it will only adjust around 0s. And you'll see now it did not adjust. Okay? I would have adjusted anyway in this case because over to the left there's a swing level, right? So I'm going to adjust anyway. I like the results I've been getting set the way it was before, but again, some of you could change that. You may want to back test it further and see. Maybe you don't like those adjustments. It does take away a big percentage of the trade. 2 ticks is a big percentage. It's really important that you understand that. It's something you could always do in your head on bigger trades. I'm just going to leave it as is. The results have been stellar. I'm just going to go through January. January has been just amazing. The EuroBund has been winning with Power of Quitting 1 82% of the time. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. It's racked up about 2,000 euros, give or take. And we're talking just a few trades a day, sometimes only one trade a day. All right, remember, my Power of Quitting rules require that we get a full target or at least one tick to full target. I've got the automation turned on as well, and we'll continue to talk about what that can do. The automation does not have that rule with Power of Quitting. If it wins one trade and it's only one tick, it's going to quit. And so the results are a bit different. But I did run the results on the same date range using the automation, and you'll notice that the results are nearly identical. In fact, the winning percentage is even a little higher. Okay, there's the performance graph. This is just for January. So, and this is a 2-position approach, of course, fixed target and then trail. On the UTA, it looks a little bit different. The UTA, of course, is the program spreadsheet that I track all my trades and do my back testing and forward testing, all my trade logs. I'll show you what that looks like. It's a pretty similar curve. Of course, this started back in on November 5th, so I'm only showing you this year. But you can see that the curve is very similar to what I showed you with the automation. So there's a slight difference with how I'm making chart decisions to adjust a tiny bit around chart levels, as well as continuing to force a full winner. And so maybe those aren't as good of ideas as just going with the straight out of the box plan, power of quitting, no matter what the amount is, whether it hits full target or not. I'm not sure yet. I will show you the curve though, what it looks like since November 5th. You can see it did really well starting here around 0. It really zoomed. Had 2 weeks that were problematic in December. This was the first week of December, and this was the 3rd week in December. Okay, so a couple tough sessions. Maybe limiting the amount of trades would have minimized this drawdown. But you know that's going to happen with any market. You're going to have a problem week from time to time. But if you stay with the plan, you're going to end up being okay. This is a good strategy because it's 10 euros per tick. You don't need as large of an account to trade this, and it trades during the European hours. This is starting at 9 a.m. Eurex time. So it's important to understand that this is exchange time. So figure out where you are in the world and when your start time would be. Set your charts to exchange time, and you'll be able to know that you're always trading at the proper time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and walk through the trades, and we'll just kind of take a look. I'll give you a chance to get inside my brain, and I'll think through the setups. Hopefully you'll be able to get some insight on the stuff I think of when I'm facing a trade on the right edge of the chart, having to make a decision on what to do next. All right, so here we are at the right edge of the chart on the 2nd of January, first day back from the holidays, and we're looking for our first setup. It's not quite 9 a.m. We can get in sync. There's a setup here at 8:56. It looks really small, but that's also due to the scaling and the big gap from the prior session to the new session. So this will open up once the scaling changes. It's going from 74 to 69. Okay, remember, we're using the Pro calculator. The second target is the 2x. The first target is the 1.5x. If you're on the standard calculator, 144.69 is going to appear down here at target 3. You'd have target 3 at 2x. You could always change the multipliers in your calculator if you want. The important thing is your fixed target is at the 2x. And it triggers in. It's 9 o'clock. You have to kind of finesse your entry a little. It gets in right here. You can see that it stabs up. I'll make it a little bigger so you can see. The automation picked it up as well. And it gets the 5 ticks rather easily. I realize 5 ticks isn't that much. It is 50 euros. And remember, Trend Jumper is dynamic. And we also get the benefit of trailing. And you'll notice that it continues to trail lower and lower. And it keeps going until finally it exits here an hour and 25 minutes later. And this entire trade picked up a nice move. In fact, it exited at 144.43, and that was good for a 31 tick move for 310 more euros. So the entire trade combined for 360 euros. And you're done, one and done. Let's go to the next session. And as I scroll forward, notice how different it looks now that the scaling has changed. So you got to be careful that you're not fooled by the scaling on your chart in relation to the size of the trade that you're taking. Alright, so here we are, January 3rd. We got a setup here. A little bit later, sets up at 9:37, crossover short. Doesn't quite get to the money management until here. You can see the stop move down inside of that bar. And that's a nice winner to fixed target. Good for 11 ticks. And then the trailer came up, and this time the trailer didn't make as much as the fixed target, but combined, that was good for 13 ticks and 130 euros. On to the next session. And because of the holiday shortened week, this is the 4th, and this is the last day of the week. Got a long setup at 8:40. Notice that at 9:01, we get in sync with the same trade. It pushes up to full target. That's good for 10 ticks. Stops out for only 1 tick on the trailer. We're done with 11 ticks, And in 3 trades, we've made 60 ticks, and that's 600 euros. 3 trades. The power of quitting 1. This trade is all about working smarter, not harder. Next session. All right, here we are on January 7th, Monday. Got a setup right here at 8:47. Triggers in right at 9:01. The next bar is when we pick it up, getting in sync as it pulls back down to the entry. We're targeting 143.10. And you can see that it comes up. It misses the full target by 1 tick right here. And then it comes back down and stops out for a 1 tick gain. And because of the way I do power of quitting, I'm finished. Because for me, if it misses the target by 1 tick, that's close enough. I allow that to count towards power of quitting. And so it only gains 1 tick, unfortunately. That's okay. I mean, if you kept trading, you would have had another trade. You could have picked up the pink trade, gotten in sync with that, or you could have even grabbed the next jump trade, which just missed its target again. This trade would have canceled. This trade would have canceled. You know, you would have traded all the way till late into the morning, and ultimately it would have turned into a loss. So actually getting out and letting this be the only trade of the day, getting to 1 tick to full target. I mean, it did go to full target, didn't it? But because of our money management rules, we stopped out for only 1 tick. It's going to happen sometimes. There is no perfect solution to price action. We just try to navigate through the markets and balance between risk mitigation and profitability. At least we're able to take what the market wants to give us, minimize our drawdowns, and move our account forward in a dynamic way based on market conditions. So we'll just take our 2 ticks on this and move to the next session. All right, so here we are on the 8th of January, Tuesday. We have a setup right here. Does not cancel. Sets up at 9:14, 2 bars later, stabs down. We're in the trade. The stop moves. This one stops out. It's a small setup. I mean, it only goes from 12 to 06, so it's good for 6 ticks. Comes up, stops out for only 1 tick more, and that's all she wrote. 7 ticks on the trade, on to the next session. And remember, you build your account over time. 7 ticks and 70 euros may not sound like a lot, but when your account grows and you're able to put on 4 positions, all of a sudden it's 280 euros. When you grow your account more, you put on 10 positions, all of a sudden it's 700 euros. And you're keeping that risk at the same percentage, same low ratio, 2%. Again, smarter, not harder. Give yourself a chance to build your business. All right, January 9th. Look how quickly this is going. This one just barely ticks in, unfortunately. And it took until January 9th to get our first losing trade of the year. It barely ticks in. You know, bad luck. It's going to happen. Turns around, stops out. It's just the way it goes. That one's going to lose 8 ticks per position. But we keep trading, trying to get power of quitting 1. The next trade, the setup comes at 9:49. It finally triggers in at 10:13. Stays valid the whole time, right? Because the confirmation line stays above the jump line. There's no close below the jump line. And so it stays valid. And that one goes to full target. And it grabs 8 ticks, but the trailer only gets 1 tick, so we still don't have power of quitting. We have a third trade now, and that one goes from 143.41 to 143.47. Good for 6 ticks. We push our stop up to protect our trailer. Never comes down to touch it. And it keeps heading higher and higher, and it finally stops out way up here at 143.53. And that was good for another 12 ticks, and these 2 trades are enough to overcome the first losing trade and then some. We're actually 11 ticks positive, and that's power of quitting. Done for the session. So let's move on to January 10th. All right, January 10th, Waiting for our start time. We got this trade that cancels. Looks like we're going to get long on this setup, 926. A jump trade from 143.61 to 143.67. Gets up to, well, it misses the full target by just 1 tick. And so we're going to stop out with a 1 tick gain. And again, if you're using the rule that if you miss the full target by 1 tick, that qualifies for power of quitting, you're done for the session. Last time that helped us. This time it prevented a winning trade that would have trailed down pretty far. It actually would have ended up being a 14 tick session instead of a 2 tick session. Again though, realize there's nothing perfect no matter what you choose to do. So it's just a matter of remaining consistent. If you want to trade more, sometimes you'll end up digging a hole and having losses. Other times you might end up with winners. For sure you're going to work longer and harder. And in the end you may end up with just breaking even for all that extra effort. So I like quitting, even though we only got 1 tick for a second time this month on the first trade because it missed the full target by just 1 tick. Gives a little margin of error for my power of quitting rules that require a full target winner. So let's go to January 11th, Friday. Alright, so January 11th, waiting for our first setup. You got to wait quite a bit of time here. Finally at 9:33, we get our first setup. It's a long at 142.42, targeting 142.50. No problems getting the 8 ticks. And we trail on up. A little higher. We finally get out up here at 142.54. And that was good for another 12 ticks and a 20 tick session and 1 trade, another 200 euros to grow our account incrementally. One more step. And that's the end of the week. The week ended up grabbing 42 euros, 42 ticks, 420 euros, I mean. And there was only 1 losing trade all week. In fact, there's only been 1 losing trade the entire month so far. Let's go on to January 14th. That was this past week that just finished. Alright, so here we are. Trade number 1, 846. Look where it gets in sync. Not until 902, several bars later. Comes up, barely touches money management, comes down, stops out for just 1 tick. So we have to take another trade because we didn't get to full target. We didn't get to within 1 tick of full target. I put arrows here to illustrate that here this would have been a crossover short trade, but remember there's a filter when it goes against the 50 EMA. You don't get a crossover. You can turn that off in the Pro Calculator. If you turn it off in the Pro Calculator, I'll show you how to do that. Use EMA filter. By default, it's set to true. It only affects crossover trades. By setting it to false, all of a sudden now, see these 2 arrows? It's a short trade, isn't it? Comes 1 bar earlier. Ends up losing anyway. But there are times when you may be interested in that kind of trade where you have a crossover against the 50 EMA. But usually it's going to be when you're further up in a trend. Alright, let me turn it back off again. Remember, by default, it's set to false. The filter is set to true. The next trade was a jump trade. It doesn't look like it because we don't really have a pullback into the jump line, but here's a case where the jump line moves closer. So it does count. It's a losing trade, but in other material that I've talked about on other videos, whenever you get a short that straddled or close to the yellow 50 EMA, the odds go lower. So you may decide those are the kind of trades you don't want to take at all. Okay? I still counted it. It was 8 ticks, so it lost 8 ticks times 2 positions. So it's only the second losing trade of the year and of the month. This was the hardest session. We had to fight our way through, and the reason why is because, well, here's your next trade, right? Crossover trade. You got a jump trade here, but we're going to go with the earlier setup. Goes a good distance. It's a fairly decent sized trade, but it comes down and stops out for only 1 tick. So far 2 winners, only 1 tick each. Not enough to overcome the full loss. It's going to happen sometimes. The next trade's also a winner. That one goes the distance to full target, but it's only 5 ticks, and you only get 1 tick on the trailer. So you're still negative. To take another trade, trying to get positive. This time it gets to money management, comes up, stops out for 1 tick. So believe it or not, we're still like 4 ticks negative, and we still need another winner to get positive. At this point in time, you may just say, you know what, I'm okay. I've had numerous winners. They were real small. I'm only 4 ticks down on a marvelous month. Maybe I'm just going to quit. If you kept trading, the next trade would have been the long trade, and this one was able to get to money management. The stop locked in a tick, and then the stop moved up because of the jump line, and this one also stopped out for a partial profit, but it was good for 3 ticks per position, and this one extra trade turned the session positive. We were up by 2 ticks after all of that. You know, it goes that way sometimes. And you'd even be down a little more with commissions and slippage, or that's the cost of doing business. Next session, January 15th. Unfortunately, the winning trade on this one came a little too early. It set up at 8:12, and by the time it was 9 o'clock, this move was already off and running. So we have to wait for our first setup. Happens here. Now look at the entry. The entry is at 143.06. There's a little bar to the left that stabs up to 06. I'm going to make a little 1 tick adjustment and get in at 07. I'm willing to make that additional payment. If it stabs through, which it did, look, it went up and touched 7, and it ended up losing anyway. So the adjustment cost me 2 extra ticks, but there are times it'll keep you out of a full losing trade, so I'm going to do that every time. Here it is, our second losing trade of the year. And then there's a long here that just barely triggers in and stops out, so 2 losing trades. Now this particular trade, this is a real flaky setup. This is a setup I probably would have skipped in real life. And the reason why is because you got this very small little doji. Doesn't really get close enough to my EMA, but all these bars count as island bars to this EMA. I mean, this is a case where you just can't program every situation perfectly into the calculator. And so when it pulled back within 2 ticks, and dojis count as setups, it printed a long trade. But it's below the jump line, because we're jumping off the yellow. You got the confirmation line already crossing, ready to turn negative. And so I did count this as a losing trade. It's a rare situation that you want to keep your eye on. This is maybe not a long you want to take. You could just see that it's just a bizarre setup, but nevertheless it counts as a loss. Turned around, got short right here. That was good for a full winner, and believe it or not, that's a full 9 ticks. And then it trailed lower down to here, and so that one picked up 8 ticks. But if you count this second trade, you're still negative, even though that was a good 17 tick trade. Okay. So you need one more, and that comes here, and that only gets 1 tick. And then that brings us to 12 o'clock noon, which is pretty much where I cut off the trade plan. You may decide you want to keep trading, and if you do, just back test it and make sure that the late session trades are worth it. Sometimes they are. And in this case, it would have been. You would have had a nice winner to here. The trailer would have stopped out for only 1 tick. Then you would have had another 1 tick winner. Are you positive yet? Not sure. We're going to count this as our first losing session of the year, minus 18 ticks. Let's move on to January 16th. All right, January 16th. This is interesting because you can get in sync with the yellow trade. Actually, that would be the correct trade, 8:23. By the time you get to 9 a.m., you're here. And then it pulls down. I mean, you could take either one because both trades are valid. I'm not really sure what the best one would be. They could both work. They could both lose. The important thing is that you have a rule to follow. Are you going to take the earlier trade, or are you going to take a newer trade if you have the choice between the two? The newer trade would have got you in sooner because it would have come down and hit this entry, before hitting this entry, right? At 9 o'clock. This bar's at 9 o'clock. But where did it close? You know, was it still not 9 yet? Maybe it was down in here at 9. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these positions. I figured that because this one got hit first, that this was the trade I would take. The calculator and the automation doesn't know that. It's going to go with the first trade in the sequence. So if you take this trade, you have to track it on your own. It shouldn't be a big deal. And I made a note here that it got 1 tick to target, but that's actually incorrect. It got 1 tick to the money management. So that trade is a loss. If you took the yellow trade, then it did get 1 tick to the full target. And then you would quit with power of quitting. So in this case, taking the earlier trade was the better situation. But you know, when you're on the right edge of the chart right here and you're trying to make a decision based on your start time, which trade do you take? If you want to go with the earlier trade, just do it every time the same way. If you want to go with the newer trade, or whichever trade triggers first, then do that. Again, I just don't know what the best way is. You're going to have to decide. If you took the second trade, it's still going. Notice the stop is down here. So it has not hit its stop out. And so what happens? It pulls up and it gets to within 1 tick of full target here, and then it comes down and it ends up hitting its money management anyway for only 1 tick. So in either case, both trades end up with only a 1 tick gain. Both trades miss the full target by only 1 tick, and that's it. Power of quitting, done for the session for only 2 ticks. All right, so far, I mean, we've only had 1 losing session, but the 2 winning sessions haven't been very good. They've only been 2 ticks each. And so we had 1 losing session of 18 ticks, the only losing session of the month, and just because of the way the bars fell on the chart and the unusual, you know, situation of missing our full target by 1 tick on a couple sessions, even though we've won 2 out of 3 sessions, we're still down by about 12 ticks for the week. So let's go to the last 2 sessions. Let's jump over to the 17th. Looking for our start time. First trade, 9:01. It's a jump trade. This trade triggered in, took some heat. You know, you could tell by the EMAs, the way they line up, that you got a little choppy action setting up here, or some strong support anyway that it needs to punch through. Look where the stop is. Are you going to leave the stop here, or are you going to move it 1 tick higher to work around this little swing level to the left? Hopefully by now you know you're going to adjust around the swing level. So I'm going to go to 5.4 in this case. I'm not going to go all the way to 5.6. Comes down, breaks through, money management. You can see the stop locks in 1 tick right here. That stop holds, comes down, doesn't quite come up and hit the stop, even though it only got, let's see, the target is 25, got as low as 27. So it missed the full target by 2 ticks. The stop is still holding, pushes lower, and finally gets to the full target. And the trail starts trailing that jump line, and it trails lower, lower, all the way down to here. 143.06, and that was good for 33 ticks in the first position, 14 ticks. All of a sudden in 1 trade, we've got 47 ticks and done with power of quitting. So 1 session gave us 2 ticks, 2 sessions gave us 2 ticks, 1 session gave us 47 ticks. That's the whole point of power of quitting, dynamically adjusting to market conditions. And all of a sudden we have a positive week. 1 more session to go though. Let's get to Friday the 18th and see how this ends up. Alright, so here we are. First trade doesn't trigger in. Here we go. 9:04, and that one hits money management and stops out for only 1 tick. So we have to keep trading. We didn't get close enough to full target. We need another trade. Next trade is this one here. And this one just barely touches the entry and then stops out. So this is just bad luck. I mean, this trade could have easily gone lower too. Not going to cancel this setup. This one's just going to be a loss. 142.54, stopping out at 6.1. So it loses 7 ticks. And all of a sudden, we're at risk of, having to fight our way, hopefully, to a positive outcome for the week. We're nicely positive, but, if we keep losing, we're going to end up negative. The next trade comes 9:27, comes a bit later, finally triggers in at 9:41, and it zooms to full target, and that was good for 8 ticks. But then we got a runner that took us all the way up to here for 20 more ticks, a 16-tick gain, and we're done. 3 trades today. We won 2 out of 3. We ended up with 16 ticks positive. We ended up with 49 ticks on the week, 490 euros. So, just to recap, the first 3 sessions of the new year got us 60 ticks on 3 trades, 60 euros. The following week had 1 losing trade only, and we quit with 42 euros. This week had 3 losing trades, make that 4 losing trades, but we were still able to fight our way back with a 49 euro gain. And just like that, we're up 159 ticks for the month of January. Alright everybody, hope you got a lot out of this video. See you on the next one.